Friends of the Civic Space TV, viewers of the Youth Roundtable, welcome to episode 35 of the Youth Roundtable. As the world at large gears to celebrate or commemorate International Women's Day, the Youth Roundtable continues to commit more conversations to areas around the empowerment of women, but also areas around gender equality and emancipation of women. Like I always do, I give a brief historical snippet into our conversations. The year was 1909 when we saw the first International Women Commemoration, semblance of the same. It happened in New York City. The struggle for women emancipation ever since then has continued across the globe until the year 1977, when the United Nations officially declared 8th of March every single year International Women's Day. The theme for this year is known, gender equality, but also drawing a perspective into its sustainability. Today, the emerging issue domestically in Uganda is the fate of teenage mothers who are school going at the same time. But also we know that government has come up with regulations regarding teenage mothers and the school regulations post-COVID-19 era. So we're here to examine that what does this mean for the emancipation of the girl child, but above all, the future of women in our country. And to appreciate this conversation, I'm joined, of course, by a panel of distinguished one gentleman and three ladies. It's the first time in the history of the Youth Roundtable having the number of ladies outnumber the gentlemen. I think it's a step moving forward to show that the Youth Roundtable is very sensitive towards gender equality and gender emancipation. Well, my viewers, let me introduce my distinguished panel. To my extreme left is Comrade Asiimwe Hilary. Hilary is a former Minister for Women Affairs of the University Guild, of Makerere University Students Guild? GRC. Yeah. But I know that currently you're the Secretary for Women Affairs of the Uganda National Students Association.
Yes, that's
wow.
True.
Nice to have you.
Nice to have you too.
Okay.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay. Go ahead and say hello to our viewers.
Yeah, just like they have said, I'm Asiimwe Hilary, a student at Makerere University. In my final year of pursuing medical radiography, I served as the 86th Guild Representative Councillor for the School of Medicine, and I'm now currently serving as the Secretary Women Affairs for Uganda National Students Association. It's an umbrella body for all students in the country. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. That's a plethora of, titles. Next to Hilary is a friend of mine, Comrade Scovia Aweko. Aweko is a student whose research area of interest is around comparative political behavior, but also areas around institutions and migration. She joins us as a first-timer. Scovia, you're welcome. You can say hello to our viewers.
Thank you, Kidega, and thank you for having me. As you said, my name is Scovia Aweko. I'm a PhD candidate at Purdue University, and my research focuses on comparative political behavior with a specific interest in political institutions, migration, and political violence.
Oh, wow. Very interesting. Towards the end of this show, I think we shall spare some 20 minutes or 10 to discuss President Putin's political behavior.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
That would be interesting, yeah?
Right.
Yeah, thank you. Next to Scovia is my all-time friend, the gentleman who has devoted himself to issues around teenage pregnancies and the girl child. Comrade Angus Nasasira is the Executive Director and founder of Kugonza Youth Impact Uganda. Angus, you're most welcome, sir.
Thank you. I usually say, praise God, then the other region can get it from there. I'm Angus Nasasira. I'm the founder of Kugonza Youth Impact Uganda. We majorly see how shall we curb teenage pregnancy in our country, and I would want to say I do not only do that, I also represent young people from Western Uganda on the UN Coalition for SDGs. You know, we have that agenda. I believe every young person is aware of that agenda, the UN agenda. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Next to Comrade Angus is a lady who has done what only 5 other ladies have managed to do, which is to become the guild president of the alma mater, the great Makerere University. Comrade Shamim Nambassa, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, Kidega. Hello to all our viewers. Like he has said, I'm Shamim Nambassa. I'm the 87th Guild President of Makerere University and the 5th female Guild President, I should say. And I'm a final year student doing pharmacy. And also, I serve as the Guild President of Makerere University. However, I served as academic minister before. So this is what I have to do.
That is quite a plethora of, titles. So, I mean, our viewers clearly, this panel suits today's conversation. Angus, there is a very famous saying that goes that, ladies first. But today, being the only gentleman on the panel, I'm forced to begin with you. And maybe you could give us a historical perspective into our theme for today's conversation, which is the fate of teenage pregnancies, the fate of teenage mothers who are school going post COVID-19. We know that government has come up with, school regulations to see how to curtail and how to manage these girls who got pregnant, majority of which during the COVID-19 lockdown. I read a report from UNESCO that did indicate that worldwide, about 11 million girls or women got pregnant because of the COVID-19, pandemic and things like that. So maybe from your perspective as someone who works with the community very closely, what exactly is happening and what is the fate of these teenage mothers? Give us a historical, a background to this conversation.
It's so nice being here with the three ladies. And maybe I would start with them, that if one gets pregnant before the right time, that is what we call trauma and stigma. It's good that the government has brought all that we see. We have had good statistics of girls getting pregnant. But I would want to share this, that even when we put the so-called going back to school of young girls who got pregnant, I feel you have gone to school because it's a project. I usually call it a project wherever you go. This is a project for 1 year and 6 months, in that you have to breastfeed, you have to carry the baby for the 9 months, then you have to feed this baby for the 3 or 4 months. And now the government is showing us that, yeah, it's possible you can go to school. But literally, there is no young person, or there is no mother, by the way, who would leave a baby home to go for school. Now, our schools here in Uganda, I don't think even when the ministry itself said you can bring your students to school. So no, the girls that got pregnant can come to school. They didn't provide something so small where these babies would be put. So to my understanding as Angus, and the fact that I work with the slums, I would want to say, truth be told, most of the girls that got pregnant, not only by the way in Katanga where I operate now, let's go to Karangara that I sit also, most of the girls that got pregnant are still home. We shouldn't think of these girls are going back to school in that period. This is a project. I would say most of the girls I have here today, ladies I have here, have not yet produced. But let's go back and see our mother and home, Riantonde district. When one gets pregnant, you have a period of 9 months. Then you have these other 3 months that are said you should breastfeed your baby. So now school has resumed. This is 2022 Feb. They came to school in Jan. I anticipate that someone who produced in December is still breastfeeding the what?
The child.
The child. And the government tells us that you can come to school when you have produced. But where am I going to put my baby? There is one thing I would want to share anyway, working with mothers. I've realized that a baby is one thing that you cannot get off from a mother. How do you dare leave your baby home that you're going to school? Who does that? I would want to say for people who are working here or people who are going to work, you even ask for leave and the government is going to still pay you. Yes. You ask for leave for about 3-4 months. But the government is truly telling us that, you know what? Now, after producing, you can come to school. Remember that the person who has produced is poor.
They can't afford.
They can't afford that needle that is supposed to be given to this baby.
Sorry, luck.
It's not possible. To me, I believe this is not possible.
Okay, fair enough. Let me come to Hillary. Hillary, you've heard what Angus has said, that even when government is urging students to go back to school and the young mothers to go back to school, they are actually not going back to school. And UNSA, I saw, ran a campaign, a go back to school campaign when schools had been reopened. Am I right?
Yeah.
So what Angus is saying is an indictment on your aspirations and your agenda as UNSA, that you ran a campaign to encourage teenage mothers to go back to school. But Angus is saying, no, actually, these efforts were futile and these girls are still home. So maybe you could quantify or substantiate the survey that you carried out and the campaign that you did. Did actually these girls go back to school? Or you want to agree with Angus that most of them said, man, my child first, school can come later?
Well, to some extent, or to a large extent, I actually agree with him that yes, these girls have actually not gone back to school. But the factors that he has mentioned, where am I going to leave my baby? Who will take care of my baby? Some of the children were actually disowned by parents, and you find that, they are on their own. And some probably got those small-scale businesses, and they feel like, yes, you're earning money out of this business, but what will be the fate of my baby when I go back to school? Yeah. However, I was going through the Ministry of Education guidelines. Those were issued out in 2020. I believe we were still in the lockdown. So they have not been implemented as yet, I should say, because the schools have just been opened up like January.
Yeah.
So somewhere they talk about, a girl, after 3 months of pregnancy, they should let them go back home. However, I would want to disagree on that issue. That, since we are working in a post-COVID era, many of these girls were disadvantaged. Many of them were victims of sexual harassment. Many of them were victims of rape, defilement, and all that. So we should not punish them to that extent. I believe if I haven't been pregnant, but I have worked with pregnant ladies as a radiographer, doing the scans and all that. I know that, yes, it is a hard period of time for a child, for a lady, especially for a young woman to, be pregnant, yes, especially if it is the first pregnancy. However, 3 months is little time given to it's a little bit unfair to them. I think 5 months are okay. 5 months, and considering other health factors that yes, we want these teenage girls to go back to school, but the teenage pregnant girls to go back to school. But is it really practical that when they go back to school, they concentrate? Being an abnormal situation in abnormal circumstances, I think we can work together with the different institutions, the government, the police, the civil society organizations, to offer psychosocial support to these very girls, and tell them that yes, at 5 months you can still be in class, but after 5 months continue to follow up and know, yes, this child has gone back home after the 5 months, 9 months, and then 6 months down the road after pregnancy, are they coming back to school? But back to the question that you asked about, are they really in school? They are not. They are not, because of factors like they don't have where to keep their babies. So now this comes back to the ministry and the government. It is up to now the ministry to offer other support systems for now the mothers, the teenage mothers, as our focus today. That yes, after I have given birth, 6 months down the road, because I also want to agree that the child should come back to school after 6 months, considering factors of postpartum hemorrhage, because we have this happening the primary hemorrhage and secondary hemorrhage. The primary happening between like a week, and post can go up to 6 months or more. More than a week. So we have to consider also the health of the newborn baby. That yes, you have given birth, but the child, whereas you are looking at your future to be an educated woman, what about the baby you are leaving behind? Are they healthy? So after 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding, it's now upon the society where this woman, or young woman actually, young girl, that baby, it's babies giving birth to babies. So it's now upon the society where where that young girl is, and upon the parents, upon the school where the child was studying, upon the police, after such an issue, knowing that a girl has been impregnated, the police should follow up and know how did this happen. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Hilary. Scovia, let me come back to you shortly. Let me first skip to Madam President. So, because I know that Shamim, for sure, you have a medical background as well, right? So, let's exhaust the medical conversation since Hilary has taken us to that direction. Shamim, you come in the line of 87 great ladies and gentlemen of this country, but in the line of only 5, very great women of this country. And there are so many young girls who look up to you, be like, oh, wow, Shamim has made it to that level. I want to be like Shamim. I want to be like Hilary. I mean, so what is the fate of this lady who dreams or who dreamt to be a Shamim one day, but then COVID-19 came, and maybe because of certain economic and cultural situations, they got pregnant, Where does it leave this child, this young girl who aspires to be like you? And what is Makerere University Students Guild doing about this?
Thank you so much, Kidega, the way you framed it around the girls and then the aspirations and inspiration. Yes, I appreciate the fact that as we speak right now, I think it's important that people get to know that the teenage pregnancies now lie at about 25%. So you find that every 1 in 4 girls is actually pregnant before they turn 18. So these girls are having an identity problem. How can I call it? They have that identity crisis. She doesn't know whether she's a woman or she's a girl. So when this girl is, I'll choose to call her girl because she's not yet 18. So when they call the young girls to come maybe for a specific kind of training or something, she can't fall there because she's now a mother. But then when they call the women in the village, she'll still not go because she cannot associate with those people. So they are having that kind of identity crisis. And now we are coming out and telling them, no, look, there is future for you as well. You can go somewhere. You can still continue with school. And I want to agree that we live in a society where we have this class of people where maybe we are going to fall, who sit back and say, I agree these girls should go to school. I agree these girls need this. But then we are not on ground. That we sit in these big conferences, we come up with all these campaigns, we are advocating for all these things, but then they end on social media. Or worse still, yes, they will reach out there, but then what is the preparation that we have done? As we saw this situation, I think, was it a bishop or a reverend that said these girls shouldn't go to school? And then definitely, I think for him, it comes from a lineage of people who believe that girls, the moment you become a mother, then there is some kind of life now that you subscribe to. Then the Ministry of Education and Sports comes out and says, no, these girls have to go to school. But then the questions are so many. What happens to their kids? Who is going to take care of their kids that they've given birth to? For these other ones that are actually pregnant, how are they going to survive in school? Because you see, for us who went to these secondary schools, it was unheard of for you to be pregnant. Everyone looked at you like an outfit, like, how come? I mean, how could she have been pregnant? So what is being done about these girls that are actually undergoing all that stigma in society? So I want to believe that yes, we are coming out, we are doing all these campaigns, we are pushing for these girls to have a normal life, but we've not done the preparation that is supposed to be done. We do not have the psychosocial support that is supposed to be offered to these girls. So I want to believe that when we all come out to say and speak about these things, that they do not end in these big hotels that we sit in and conferences, and we now go down to the lower level, that what is being done for these girls. That when this girl has given birth to this baby, if she's going to choose to go to school, then her brother or sister is going to be sacrificed to take care of that kid. So meaning the illiteracy is now also going to increase. That now you either the teenage mother goes to school or the little sibling goes to school. So it is that kind of situation that we have not done enough preparation. In addition to all these campaigns, can we go down to the lower level? And then, of course, you asked me what we are going to do as the 87th, or maybe as a government that is led by girls. There is a campaign I hope to start, and even during my time as I was coming through as guild president, because I believe when someone is president for Makerere University, we should agree they become president for Uganda. Am I right? Yes, so you're right.
There's UNSA.
No, those are different. Yes, so even in my campaign, that it is something that we focused around, that as Makerere is making 100 years, there's so many girls that would want to be in my shoes. There's so many girls that would want to take up these spaces. So we hope to run campaigns still on teenage pregnancies. But this time round, we are going down to the root cause. That in a recent campaign, I think it was NTV or NBS that had a report about these Kasese girls that were selling their bodies to get sanitary towels. So you find that it goes down just to a small level of a sanitary towel. A pack of sanitary towels goes for 3,000 maybe. But then if this girl cannot afford it, and then they have to sacrifice their bodies. I want to believe if someone has been through Makerere, if you go to our halls of residence, you're going to find some boxes filled with a lot of pink condoms. What would happen if actually they did the same, that when I enter Mary Stewart, I'm going to find a box of sanitary towels. Then what would happen if now I go down to Karamoja or I go to Kalangala, and there are these centers where these girls can reach out to and get these sanitary towels and get sexual reproductive health. So that our priorities are different. That while you prefer to concentrate on sex, why don't we now also move into these menstrual periods, because every month at least we know these girls are going to get pregnant.
Nice, fair enough. Good thoughts right there. Angus, I'll come to you shortly. Let me go to Scovia. Scovia, you are a PhD candidate. I cannot help but notice the imparity between someone like you and the girl child who just got pregnant because of COVID-19. They didn't reach maybe primary 7 or even senior 4. And you've managed to achieve, up that level. I think there is need for us people who have had the opportunity to appreciate, the world and, all these, world developments, to get down and support these ordinary young girls. And let me focus my question on one thing. At the heart of the United Nations resolution of 1977 was the aspect of reproductive rights. Okay. So my question to you, to be precise, is: do you think that the reproductive rights of these young girls are being impeded on? Because if I have to give birth, and like our comrades in the in the medical perspective, I put it, that suits, I think that I have at times moved to think that they're lawyers. But the point is, their reproductive rights, that I give birth, I should have ample time to breastfeed my child, to give them that motherly love. But now here I am having to go back to school. Does that, in one way or another, impede on the rights of these young girls? But also your general perspective about this.
Right. Thank you, Kidega. I think one of the things you said, right, I'm a PhD candidate. So the assumption is that, right, I've been so privileged, the fact that I had a smooth sail up to that level. And I'll admit, yes, I did not have to go through teenage pregnancy, but my mother did, right? And as someone who went through teenage pregnancy, she was of course forced into child marriage, right? And from there on, right, that's how her life as a village subsistence farmer started. And we can see some of the effects, right, the structural effects of teenage pregnancy, because once you become pregnant, then you're kind of stuck in this cycle of poverty, because you're forced to start a family and start fending for your children, etc., etc. But when it comes to reproductive rights and the question of, should the girls actually be going back to school and leave their babies behind, right? I think for me personally, it's a question of it's not a question of whether they don't want to go back to school or whether they actually lack support, as so many of the panelists have pointed out. And part of that support is, right, us setting up institutions that can actually enable the girls to go back to school whenever they decide to, right? If someone has enough, structural support is foremost, right? The family is willing to take care of the child, they're willing to provide the supplementary foods, whether it is the needle, the Cerelac, or whatever, and they can go back to school after 3-6 months, that's okay. Or when someone decides that, right, I'm not yet ready, right, give me 1-2 years, right, they should still be able to go back to school at that point in time. We've seen a pop-up of institutions that are providing adult education, vocational training, and things like that. So there should be a provision of alternatives. that cater for the needs and wants of all these girls. As we say, none of us here have experienced teenage pregnancy, and so we cannot really speak to the experiences of those people, right? And it's unfortunate that we don't have everyone, right, on the panel who is familiar with that. But one thing for sure is that we should give those people agency, right? Because they should be able to make those decisions for themselves. And yes, the Ministry of Education is taking a step towards that, because previously we did not have those provisions at all. Once you became pregnant, that was the end of your school life, right? But now we're taking measures to ensure that these girls are going back to school, because the ministry probably realizes that it is at fault at this point, right? 2 years of lockdown that exposed girls to these conditions, right? The sexual harassment, and all the other variables that come to play. And so if the ministry is saying, let's support the girls to go back to school, and the girls want to go back to school, yes, but of course there should be other alternatives to kind of cater to the wants of those girls. When it, sorry? No, I think I can stop for now,
Alright, thank you. Angus, I have a question for you, but I don't forget what I have for Hilary. Hilary, my question is going to be overarching, on all institutions, because at least you're at that level. I know for sure that Makerere University has a liberal approach, a liberal economy. Whether you're pre-kindergarten or not, you can walk into class, attend the lecture, no one will care. And there are institutions like Uganda Christian University. I am not sure of their principles regarding such, things. And maybe from your perspective, from where you sit, I believe you've had the opportunity to appreciate the principles and values of these different universities. So maybe for the benefit of our viewers, because right now as it looks, we are focusing more on the secondary school levels, but also we shouldn't forget, the advanced levels, that have these principles that actually, regulate and castigate them to say girls get pregnant. So maybe for the benefit of our viewers, could you shed a light on the issues around advanced education and higher institutions of learning? Are they also being affected by this? Are they being asked to leave?
Yes, let me interject. You say you're focusing on secondary school girls because we're talking about teenage pregnancy. So by the time someone makes it to university, most of them are almost like 20, so they don't lie in a class of teenagers. Okay, that's very small percentage.
Even that's more is what is being talked about. So what is
getting back to Makerere, yes, you can enter class pregnant, but you cannot enter with your baby. Yes. Of course, why would you come with a crying baby? It's really unrealistic. So you find that the whole issue of pregnancy is a broad, kind of thing, and it is natural. So once the whole point of getting pregnant, for our viewers, for our beloved sisters, siblings, daughters out there, is that you prepare for the pregnancy. We advise that you take the precautions. If you decide at university you're not going to you're not going to go out, even if you're a parent, you're not going to follow your daughter and tell her you not get involved in sexual.
Yeah, but just to rephrase it again, the administration of, for example, Uganda Christian University, which I know is, as the name goes, it's a Christian university. I believe they have certain moral values that we follow. Let's look at, for example, IUI, the Islamic University. I'm sure some of these values might be more stringent compared to liberal and public institutions like Makerere University. So maybe you could educate our viewers that are the higher institutions of learning exempted from this crisis, or the institutions at that level that are actually impeding or are putting across regulations that actually affect school-going mothers?
Well, my advice on what I would say to such institutions putting regulations is that, in my thinking, I don't think it's proper. University-going student is in a position to make a decision that, or back to a child of say 15 or 14 or 17, to consider their mind to be younger, and they need a lot of guidance. And whereas these university-going girls still need a lot of guidance, but most of them are adults. 19, yes, you're a teenager, but you are adult as per the constitution. So back to the administrators in the different universities. I don't think it's proper to come into the lives of these girls and stop them from coming to class pregnant. They could have decided, they could be married, they could be in the process of, some people may not consider the legal marriage and they decide to stay with their husbands.
Customary.
Husband. So it's a decision they have made. By the time they have decided to keep the child and come to class, they are adult enough to take care of the pregnancy. So just like Makerere lets them come to class, but does not let them come with the babies after. I think other institutions should borrow or adopt the system and let them come, because these are adults we are talking about. You're not going to stop them from getting pregnant. So let them.
And feeding the world.
Yes.
How don't we feel the world?
Angus, yes. I'll give you an opportunity to, because I see you have a burning concern. But also, before you put out your point, Comrade President here put a concern earlier on, and she said that we must get on ground. Let's leave the boardrooms, and get on ground. My assumption is that institutions, civil society, or community-based organizations like Kugonza Youth Impact are assumed to be on ground. Okay, I mean that's at least from where I'm sitting. I assume you guys are on ground. So, Shamim is literally putting an indictment, or she's castigating institutions for spending too much time in the boardroom and not going on ground. Is the case different for Kugonza? Are you also a boardroom community-based organization? Or, like you said, you're in Katanga, because at least I've done some work within Katanga. Sorry, in Namugongo, where I went and talked to those teenage pregnant girls, and I saw you are doing a lot of good work with them, teaching them these hands-on skills and tailoring. And really, I applaud you for that. But I think more institutions need to take up that approach of let's get to the grassroots. So my question to you is: do you think these community-based organizations are actually on ground, or it is only Kugonza Youth Impact?
I wouldn't say it's only Kugonza. Every man has a way he does his digging. As he's saying, some people are in the boardroom making noise. But there are those people who really do work. And I would want to say teenage pregnancy. Me fighting teenage pregnancy is out of passion. It starts away right from Calvera, my own home. Someone who was 13, she had performed well P7 and she's going to be married off because we all need a lot of good aquatic cows, you see. So I'm like, no. And they have this mindset in I would say my culture. You have been Kampara, we see on planes, so you do not know what culture brings about. I said not that. So I believe some people just come to boardrooms to make this. But it's not good. Biblical wise, I'm not a Christian as I can say, but I know always do good things and God will provide. Why would the government give you some grant and you're all in office, yet people are not getting the money, or people are not getting this that they should get? Now that the girls are pregnant, and I think I should tell the nation, all my dear viewers, that when one gets pregnant is a mother. Regardless of whether you're 13, 14, you will become a mother in that your minds will have changed. You want to see your baby have the teeth. You will want to see your baby start standing, walking. And now that changes everything. We are speaking about school, you people. There is no you're going to think about going back to school and do mathematics when your baby is not eating. Kidega, you go to school, we are all students. There is no way I can go to a club, maybe personally anyway, when I was at Shambo. There is no way I would go to a club when I know I have an exam tomorrow. The same applies to this mother who is 13. There is no way you will tell her come and concentrate on biology. Remember, these people are 14, they're in senior 1 now. These are 14 subjects he has been doing 4, has a baby. The husband is normal, he left for Katanga, or he left Katanga and now he's in Namasuba. So there is no this young girl is going to come back to school. When one gets pregnant, it's a different world. To the girls here or to the boys, do you remember the first day you have your virginity off? It's a different pain. The same applies to the pregnancy. So when one gets pregnant, it's a different movie. Now you come to the new world. It's either pain, or if you have a good husband like me, it's going to be good. So if you have someone who is so bad, it's going to be the worst moment. Now, when I speak about Katanga, I think I've been there. You find that people do not know that there is good life. I want to show you that someone has stayed in Katanga for the last 16 years. He has never been in Serena for a cup of tea. Just because of that little sex. Our president usually calls it that little sex. That simple sex turned her life. Some of us pass via. Do you know we have people that do not access the parliament of Uganda? Like most of the people do not know what's happening, and these are citizens. But it all started from that simple thing. And as we are saying, going back to school is real. No, it's not real. Because when you get pregnant, it's a different world. We can sugarcoat
I want to disagree at some extent. Because I don't agree with the language where you say you cannot say that this girl should go to school. You cannot say that this girl is going to focus on this. I think what is important now is for us to find how are we going to say to this girl? How are we going to make sure that she actually takes it and knows that I have this baby here, but I have to provide for this baby at the end of the day. I have to go to school. If it's a vocational institute, let her understand that she has to go and get those skills. Let her understand that she's going to do this. That we shouldn't focus on what is stopping us from doing what is supposed to be done. Yes, it's there in hard times, but then let us find solutions rather than saying that we can't tell them to go and study.
Have you ever smoked in your life?
No, I don't smoke.
Do you drink?
No, I don't.
Which habit do you have that you can tell the community?
In what context?
Bad habit. That's very good. I'm this person who comes from a cattle grazing area.
Yes.
I used to steal milk. Like steal milk. You know when you're in that movie of stealing, early morning you're milking and your father is in the house, so you steal something like 5 liters, hide them before he's coming, you'll never know it's bad, not until you get out of that. The same applies with teenage pregnancy. And you have a period, by the way, because I remember I did this from P7 up to this in year 6, because I used to get money from that. Again, the same applies to teenage pregnancy now, in that most of the girls are pregnant. Yes, it's what I'm doing in Katanga. That now that you're pregnant, look, you can bake. Because initially my plan is, can we have maybe Katanga bakery, where all the girls now come and bake. And do you think it's easy?
Yes,
it's not easy. She told us on the guy.
It's not easy, but it's what has to be done. And I believe that good things are not gotten an easy way.
It's not going to be just by Kugonza, but
yes,
very many people and societies coming together. And
Uganda.
So what I'm trying to put out is that negative energy you're using.
Right. No, but that's what's happening.
No. One thing that Jerry actually mentioned in the beginning was the ways that society can actually come together to support these girls. And it's not just, because we all have the same, it takes a village to raise a child, right? It could be the grandmother, or it could be, right, so many people involved. She mentioned the police checking up. Right? So many organizations or institutions providing this support so that this girl can feel like she can actually go to school without having to worry about her child, right? And not being able to get food. But one thing you're doing is denying these girls the agency to actually make that decision for themselves, because if
my school of thought is, let this girl first nurse the baby. Make sure that the baby is 2 years or 1 year. Probably.
Didn't we all say that in the beginning? One thing, like I say, right? People have different, right? Girls can make these decisions at different points in their lives. If one of them feels like after 3 months, they can go, that's for them. One can decide after a year, after 2 years, based on the support that they receive. But it's not that we should put this out of the question because it is so difficult and therefore we cannot manage it. let's just throw our hands in the air and say we've given
And
up.
in life, I think the theme was, you told us here, if we're like, suppose we talk about this in light with the theme this year, which I want to believe the theme is breaking the bias. Yeah? So this is the bias we are talking about. Society out there thinks that, when you get pregnant, you're going to
The life has changed.
in a specific way. Why can't you break that theme? And
Okay, fair enough. Angus, I mean, it has been an hour of the year again as well. It is only fair that I give you a chance to clarify your point before you go for the break.
Wow, we can think of all that. I'm going to celebrate that by the way. But literally, when I sit down and read what the government is giving us, I feel no.
But since when do we want what the government is giving us?
No,
What has
no,
it given
no, no.
us good things?
We have seen our friends being tortured. How many young people come to say no to this? How many girls have gotten pregnant? I remember the first time I was on NBS, it was a question to the NBS itself. Like, how many times do we have an advert coming in about stop teenage pregnancy?
Then that's a whole different conversation, right? Because you're the same people who don't want girls to have access to contraceptives. You're the same people who don't want sex education in school, right? That's a whole different conversation on actually stopping the teenage pregnancy that I believe that we're going to get into.
Yeah.
But for now, we're dealing with the girls who actually gotten pregnant, right? So what's the next step?
I think just to be fair to Comrade Angus, what Angus is saying, in my view, from how I pick it, is that you cannot. It's a give and take. You cannot expect to be pregnant and at the same time you continue with your life normally. One way or another, the circumstances around your pregnancy is going to affect you. And what he's saying is he's not trying to be realistic in the situation. That you know what, this child needs you as much as your education needs you. How about you first pause, breastfeed the child, nurture them until an age where they're able to live on their own, then they go back to school. I think that's your point of
And I think we all agree to that. And our thing is, it depends on the type of support that you receive from your family, from the community.
Also, the girls have a hand in the decision. Okay. And just as much as they have a hand in decisions, society should also not be silent or guiding.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for keeping it the Youth Roundtable. Please feel free to continue to put your comments in the comment section, but also go ahead to subscribe to this particular conversation. We now take a short break. See you shortly after. We'll be back. Many thanks for keeping it the Youth Roundtable. We hope that you are enjoying our conversations. Like I told you earlier on, please feel free to comment on the comment section about what the panelists are saying. If you agree or disagree, let us know and let us see that comment in the comment section. But also, kindly subscribe to this conversation so that you can get weekly updates and notifications of our Youth Roundtable conversations. Well, I'll continue from where I had stopped, and Comrade President, let me begin with you. I have read communist literature, and precisely Karl Marx. Karl Marx would tell you that family is the primitive establishment of any society, that for society to grow, that what we see at a national level or at a country level all begins with the family. And if you look at the teenage mothers, the numbers rose during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, when the assumption was that majority of these girls were at home with their families, with their parents. So it looks like our families are not doing enough, or should we say they are broken? Because if our girl child becomes more safe in schools than they are at home, then it means that it casts a light on our family establishments. But also, is it does it castigate, or in one way, negatively paint our moral decadence as a people? So, my question to you is that, do you think schools, schools or institutions, one of which you preside over, have become much more safer in terms of upbringing and nurturing, children and even adult going students? So do you think institutions and schools have become more safe than homes?
Yes, thank you so much Kidega, I want to agree with you that we saw the numbers of teenage pregnancies increasing when these students are actually home with their families and caretakers than when they were in their schools. First and foremost, I think for us it's a reflection on what we've lost, that we're losing that cultural, what should I call it, that morality that we had, that in the old Buganda kind of system, we had these singers that would talk to us and take us through these things. But now for someone like me, I've spent, I think we start to go to school maybe at the age of 2, and these days even now daycare, we're seeing nursery school kids going to school. So these, the parents that we have now are people who have taken off the responsibility, and it's now up to the school. So now when it's now their turn to take care of them, it becomes so hard that for someone in secondary school and they go to school for like three months, so that is like 9 months, so they're only at home maybe for 3 months, and some even study during holidays. So the parents are no longer aware of what their responsibility is when it comes to taking care of their children and all that.
But someone could argue that this is not because of their own making. Because, I mean,
yes.
the world out there demands of them to go to work,
exactly.
to look
so
for
that
money.
is why I was coming to.
Okay.
That now when this country was locked down, you find that most of the parents maybe originally are single mothers. Or to start with, maybe actually this is the one taking care of the kid is already maybe was a teenage mother already. So we are seeing the same thing traversing over the generations. But then even now when these kids were home, these parents still had to find a way to feed their kids. So they would still leave them at home. That as compared to school, where they know that my kid is at school and is under someone's care, that they have these strict rules and regulations. It's not the case now. These kids are being left at home to take care of themselves. And then what kind of information are they being exposed to? It's also some other thing that your mom leaves in the morning at 6 and comes back later in the night to sleep. So you're at home the entire day with maybe caretaker, or you know, I don't want to call them maids or house helps, and then so we are lacking the basic kind of information and guidance which you would have expected the parents to provide, but they're actually not in position
In
to
addition
do the same.
to what she's saying, well, we may not entirely blame the parents in this, but look at the exposure these children are having. Their phones, the television, whatever you do, you cannot follow up and know what your child is actually watching. Then we are also looking at teenagers that are in high-risk areas, those that are at a high risk. Look at the slums, look at the islands. You find that the areas where a child is surrounded by bars, what do you expect out of that child being left surrounded by drunkards or by people that you don't actually respect that you are a child? When you look at the island areas, you find that the rates of HIV are actually high, meaning that, yes, now the children are now not going to school and they are with these people that are freely, you know, having the sexual intercourse and all that. So now they are now also looking at the young children as a leverage. So on top of, you know, parents wanting to look for money, there is the issue of, you know, the high risk areas where these children have been staying. Schools have been keeping them safe because they haven't been, you know, exposed. Then look at the issue of social media and the issue of maybe whatever they are watching on TV, because recently I was watching some, you know, animes, they look like, yes, they are cartoons, and, you know, a parent will come and watch, yes, you're watching a cartoon, but in between the scenes, you know, there are adult stuff happening. So it still comes a call to the parents that whereas, yes, the children are back at school, we do not know what the future holds. Let us not let this happen again. Let us follow up on what our children are actually watching. Let us protect them if they are living in the slums. Let us surround them with protection from the people that do not value their proper upbringing.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah, sure.
So your question was, I think when you said are schools safer than homes, the first thing that came to my mind was, right, girls being violated, raped, sexually harassed by members of their own family, right? And first response, if you go to the police or the elders in the community, is that this is a family issue, and therefore you should treat it as such. The police cannot really enter into this. And the reason for that is that one of the things is that we lack those kind of social protections that are meant to actually, right, make sure that girls are safe. If there are no punitive measures to actually, right, hold those people that are making home unsafe for girls, then we see that the problem continues. But at the same time, I want to say that schools are not always safer, because we do have girls who are violated by their own teachers. And those teachers usually also go unpunished. We see that it's the girl who ends up getting expelled. And then there's stories about how, oh yeah, you know, she was like this and therefore she seduced her male teacher and that's how she got pregnant. It's never seen as, oh, the teacher actually took advantage of the student. And so when it comes to the ways that we frame some of these things, it does matter, because one of the things like, oh, is there moral decadence in the home, right? Teenage pregnancy is not really a moral issue, right? We need to set up, I guess, institutions, for lack of a better word, that ensures the safety and protection of young girls, as you said, especially in the slums. And in the rural areas, we see that teenagers are allowed to go to like these disco halls without anybody really, right? No one is stopping you at the door to check your ID, or you're allowed to go to these pornography halls to watch pornography and all of that. So there's so many things that we're doing, we're not doing right.
Wait, there are pornography halls?
Yes.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, I mean, they call them blue movies.
Okay, fair enough.
And so if our kids are allowed to really interact in these spaces that are not safe for them, then we are failing them in that regard. Not just as, you know, like the parents who are saying don't go, right, because you can't really control everything, but us as, right, society, the police not shutting down these places that allow kids to have these unusual interactions. Yep.
Well, okay, fair enough. Angus, I think you'll also have to say something about that.
I surely have to bring in my own thought now. Anyway, being in Katanga, I have to bring in a thought that I think will fit here. And this is my own statement. Poverty and idleness is a revolution of crime.
True.
I don't know if that statement would make a meaning.
Come again?
Poverty and idleness is a revolution of crime. Because I'm just imagining, you are my son and you are my daughter getting pregnant, and you tell me you're not safe home. Angus Nasasira, you get pregnant? If it's not poverty, then it's idleness. And it's bringing this quite crime. 2, we realize we have been in a lockdown. So if it's not poverty that your mother was poor and father, you got pregnant. Moses, you're a good example. I think I was with you down in Namuongo. We met a girl of 13 who the mother tells go and look for a pad and food. It's a true story. So that was poverty. And then to these class girls, it's always idleness. That you feel you want to have sex because you have watched something, and now it becomes a revolution of crime. So there are 2 things to me that I believe. If your family
girls also watch.
I think one thing I'll respond to is, again, so one of the things that we're actually doing is, right, respond in such a punitive way to teenagers having normal sexual urges, right? And so the question is not should they partake, is what sort of education are you giving them about how to control those sexual urges?
I think we're all shying away from the fact that these are active people.
Right, these are
their bodies are responding.
Their bodies want it.
Not only the girls, but also the boys.
So what are you doing to, right, really tell them that, hey, not every time, right, like you can control yourself, or if you absolutely feel like you cannot, right, use a condoms, contraceptives and all of that, because there are people who cannot abstain.
Now, I'm still young like you people. I come back to the same word, poverty and idleness. By the fact that you tell me that your body is active, truth be told, Some of us got off our virginity the rest of the day we did our exams at campus.
Yeah, that's
Good for
possible.
you.
Yeah.
This is possible.
Yes, right?
Come again?
This is possible. In that, if you're idle, no. Today, I would want to say that because of idleness, now you're bringing in this topic of saying that, you know what, these people are so active. Munange, I was a farmer. I used to graze, and you know, you're meeting girls at the dam when they are naked. In our culture, it is normal. You find a girl bathing, and there is nothing you're going to do to this young girl. They are telling me that you people are active than us.
No, but you forget that self-control is different for each individual.
Everyone has the way they react to their hormonal change.
No, it's not even that. So you're saying that just because, when you
Idleness
go
is
to
the
the
worst.
beach, right, everyone is literally wearing bikinis, right? But there is a setting for that, right? In a way that it is socially controlled for women too.
Why don't they do the things there?
Why
at the
don't they
beach?
do the things there?
We go for swimming and
the
you find the guy is well created.
Right.
But there is nothing you're going to do because you will not know.
Right. And so where does the idleness come in? Because at the beach, you're also idle.
Why it comes in with our generation now, I would
Right.
say, is this watching of TV and all that stuff. She spoke about the way girls are seeing the cartoons. I remember the government had said they're going to bring in a machine that can do something with that. I do not know why it stopped.
So one thing I'll say that
So to me-
most people in the rural areas, most girls in the rural areas actually don't have access
By the way,
to these.
people in the rural areas, a few of them go for sex. If it's not poverty, I want to tell you the truth.
No, but
If
you're
it's not
coming to the
poverty-
point that it's because you're watching these things, that's why. But now I'm countering you by saying
I
people
imagine
in
two
the
things.
villages also do get pregnant without
In my
the
statement, I
interaction.
imagine
That's
two
where other
things.
factors come in.
Right.
I imagine two things. If it's not poverty, then it's idleness. People here in Kampala,
But we agree. We
Yeah.
agree.
But
Even
we
the
agree,
idleness, like, you know, idle mind
So, to
is
me-
the devil's workshop. I agree with him when it comes to idleness. That, you know, some people actually do the masturbation and all that in their idle time. You know, if the person was actively participating in other things, okay, bring back now the issue of school. You've spent an entire day in class and probably go back to the dormitory or whatever, or home, wash, do your homework, sleep. You're not going to get the time maybe to do whatever, you know. It can be a factor, but we do not want to entirely rely on it. Yeah, but it
Rely
can be
on-
a factor to it.
it's the biggest factor to me.
Yeah.
Because family, I believe if it's family and Angus the father, over there to say Angus Junior, hey,
Okay.
it can't
Okay.
be.
Okay, fair enough. Let me take back the control of moderation.
Oh.
I see guys, you are not doing it yourselves, but well, that is part of you know, why this is a youth roundtable, because we have to, you know, embrace each other's opinions. So, but my question to you, Comrade President, is that, and this, she did hint on it, the aspect of the sexual harassment in higher levels of learning. I know that Makerere University has a very strong gender mainstreaming department or directorate, and I know that you have a zero tolerance policy against sexual harassment, right?
Yes.
But also, it looks like, whereas it is purportedly seen as sexual harassment, at times it could be, you know, it could just be lip service, that these girls at times actually need these marks. So they are willing to do whatever it takes to
But
get
that
these
is-
marks and
that
to
is manipulation.
graduate. No, because I don't just look at it from one side, that, oh, it is the lecturer who is harassing these girls. But how about this girl who reaches out to the lecturer and says, hey, you know what, this course unit, I'm finding difficulties and I'm in my final year, please give me these marks, I can give you whatever you want. The lecturer is a human being, okay?
Why would you think of that?
Yes. So, because
Just
let's be
imagining.
honest, yeah?
Okay,
There is no way you'll put ghee near fire.
And it doesn't melt.
Yes, it will melt, definitely. So this girl is putting ghee near fire,
Yes.
and she expects the ghee not to melt. So to me, I think we must be honest with these conversations. If we are to address these issues,
Yes.
we cannot continuously castigate the lecturers and say that they are harassing the girls. Yet these girls actually at times throw themselves at the feet of these lecturers for
Yes.
favors and for many other things. So do you think that the approach of Makerere University towards, of course, the policy is good, but do you think its approach of castigating the lecturers continuously, whereas forgetting that some of these girls initiate these things, is the right way to go?
Yes, yes. We have a very strict policy against sexual harassment, and yes, the lecturers are human beings. They're active and all that, but then it's they are in a position of responsibility. That at the end of the day, you are the lecturer and this is the student. No matter how much she goes, even if she goes to the extent of undressing you, it is still up to you as the person in the position of responsibility to have control over this student.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, you're in the position of responsibility.
Yeah.
It is your role. Yes, yes,
Yes.
it's your role to control the situation.
That I am a man, you'll come to my house, then you undress and do everything.
So
Yes, because you're in a
and what?
position of
because
power,
you're in a
the
position
power
of
that you
power and
hold.
responsibility.
So for you people, you don't have the power. By the time you open and dress, that's the
This
power.
is a lecturer-student
this is-
relationship.
yeah.
Right, it's
In this
not-
situation,
It's not
the
like
lecturer
we
is-
are blaming the
see,
girl
yeah,
for
but-
doing so.
the girl is not doing what is right. She's
Yeah.
doing wrong. But then you also don't make two wrongs don't make something right.
Yeah, true.
So she has, you know, seduced you and what, and then you think you should also go ahead. No. You see, when we were still kids and you'd fight with your little sister, they would still beat you, the older one, and tell
What
you
if there is?
you
what
are the
if-
older one. Why were you?
What if there is a genuine attraction between the two?
No, then
can
that
there
now
be?
goes
No,
out of what
to
is supposed to be
professional
done. Now that is
Professional ethics, huh?
ethics,
Right.
yes.
Let's not run there, you people.
No, we have to go
I'm
there.
just
We started
imagining.
the conversation
honest
now, right?
conversation.
Yes,
We have
it's
to
a
go
real
there
one.
now.
We have to be honest about it.
Allow me use your name. You as the president. Just imagine you come to my office, then you are like, it's a must. I want 80, if not I'm undressing, and I want this. What would I do? I want to keep up my name
But
as
you
Angus.
can overcome that
Keep up your name
temptation.
as
So
well.
like, Debo, you're a
Yeah.
liar. You go.
No.
Out of
She's
the
now a
office.
president.
She's in your, you
Makerere.
cannot walk
No.
out.
Yes.
Let's imagine she's now a president. Makerere University.
Please
Yes.
attach guild president.
Guild president, sorry. She's now a guild president.
Because
Makerere
Don't
University.
have to be
And
misquoted. She's not the president.
she's now a guild president at Makerere. She comes to my office, I'm the lecturer. And she's like, I want 80. If not, and I'm giving you 6 anyway. I'm giving you 6. If not,
I won't mobilize students against you.
no, that's very far. I have to undress. She's undressing already. So there are two things that will happen. You either now put this on, it becomes a clip and it's trending. I will lose my job, or I either give in and do the things.
You
At the
mean
end
at
of
that
the
point
day-
in time, you cannot walk out
can't
of
walk out
of the room.
The guy is telling, she's undressing. I don't know.
Yes, undress and
You know,
say,
you
"You know what, I
scream.
cannot."
Bit of that,
I'm just a man. I'm just imagining. This is a guy.
You're trying to say that you do
No.
not have any self-control
First of all,
at that point in
I
time.
can,
That's what
but I'm
you're
just imagining.
admitting.
You
Right.
just
You are
and-
beyond a normal man.
Right.
No, you handle
You're
it in a
right.
wise way. You know, the
you-
unfortunate
the challenge is that
bit
you're 3.
is that
It's not about us being
No,
free.
just
Okay?
imagine.
Okay,
It's
fair
not about
enough.
us being free.
Fair enough.
It's
A
about you not
president.
recognizing the power dynamics in this
Yes, between
relationship.
these two, because
Right?
at the end
As
of
a
the day,
student and a professor, who she relies on to teach her, right? And if she comes and says, "Hey,
Okay.
I need marks," you still have the power and authority
To
to
do
say
what?
no.
No, which is
you
right.
just work for
After I've said no, she's unbuttoning everything.
Right.
And she tells you once you move
One
out, I
of
will
the
scream.
policies is
Exactly,
that
that's
you
what
are-
I
Then
wanted
we're
to
going
say.
to
The
now
unfortunate
the-
bit
you
is
know,
that people
the
watching
legal
that
bits.
situation are going to rush into saying, you know,
Yeah,
the
the lecturer
girl
was
has been, the
at fault.
lecturer was actually making an advance. However, as an adult, as a man, a lecturer, I believe that you have the brains to do it in a wise way. Why not handle it in a more intelligent way? Do you have to give in to, you know, let us have the sex? No. Handle it in a, you can also threaten her with a video or a recording without her knowing.
Okay.
And you know, you'd be like, I'm going to put this out and be like, I have the recording of exactly what
I
happened.
don't think you people are just imagining what is
Also,
in
why
my
are you
head.
having closed door meetings with
Okay.
your students?
Okay. Nice. Fair enough. Shamim, before I did interrupt you, you are trying to make a point. So let me give you 2 minutes to finish that. Then I'll move on to Angus. You are making a point regarding, you know, the lecturer-student relationship and how best you think Makerere's policy is the right way to go. Because my view was that I think maybe Makerere University and other institutions are approaching it from maybe a wrong perspective. There is need to also caution the student side for them not to make advancements towards lecturers, because at the end of the day, these are human beings who could get tempted.
Yes.
So the policy.
I agree with you that you see, when policies are being made, sometimes they're rolled out and then people identify the challenges and then they continue to attend to these issues, because the policy only now talks about the student who has been harassed.
Yes.
But then what about the lecturer who has, and then we also have issues of collecting evidence. For example, that now, how is this lecturer going to prove that actually it was the student who was making advances? So yes, we have a policy, it's good, but then it's still lacking. That even sometimes you find that the student is going to report to a lecturer maybe, but then this lecturer now is looking at, who do I save between the two? This is a fellow lecturer maybe did this, and then there is a student. So there's still so many challenges that need to be addressed with these policies.
Yeah, fair enough.
addition to
Because
that,
okay,
I think also the university, I don't know if there is a policy on that. I haven't
There
really
is,
checked on it. Whether the meeting between the student and the lecturer, how are you meeting up with your lecturer? Is it in a compromising situation? Because for the offices I have been to, School of Medicine, you find that a lecturer is not just in one room alone. You find that the next door there is probably someone, or they're in a setting where they're not just the two of you in there. So also, how compromising is the situation or the environment? Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. What I picked from this conversation is that the deep pocket theory, that you're a lecturer, you have a deeper pocket in terms of the power that you have over the student. So you must be able to exercise your deep pocket theory in a conscious manner. That yes, you have the power, and don't misuse the power to take advantage of this, student. So I think to me that is where I agree on. But also I don't think it is right for the student to be left unvindicated. No, sorry, it is wrong for them to be vindicated completely. If they also make advancements, they must be held accountable, and where need be indicted. Anyway, fair enough. Angus, earlier on, Hillary mentioned the 2020 education guidelines, and which to me received so many reactions. And one of the most interesting was a lady from civil society. She said that, why is this boy being left scald-free? The girl is going to drop out of school. The boy will probably continue to even impregnate more girls. Okay, but he's being left to, to go to school and things like that. So this lady made a very, peculiar statement and said that if a boy is found to be guilty of impregnating a girl or a school-going child, this boy should be forced to leave school until this girl conceives and goes back to school. That, we must be accountable. You cannot do something, cause someone, such a crisis, then you continue to work and continue with your life. So the same impact the girl undergoes should be the same impact that this boy child goes. So do you think that is a right way to go? Or you subscribe to the thought of saying that, well, this boy, maybe after doing this, we can get him, counsel him, tell him, hey, please don't do this to other girls, and let him go back to school?
Now, I think I was doing it in two ways. I'm looking at this boy impregnating a girl, and then this boy does not go to school. Then, because initially we know that the girls now have been given a free ticket to go back to school. So you let this boy stay home for the 2 years. Earlier on I said that we should have a revolution of crime. If I'm home dormant, doing nothing, I either have to become a thief or do something that is not good. I'd rather go back to school and do something like studying. Two is that if we think we can leave the boys leave school, then Uganda is going to be the worst country. Just imagine you're telling me to leave school to go home and sit. When I'm 16, what do I do as a young boy in Uganda? Maybe if these people bring in an argument of saying that, you know what, now that you have impregnated my daughter, go and start up a family.
But at that age?
That would, yeah, it could be. I'm looking at that. But literally, I would want to say that boys, now this comes to the girls, however, my friends say that you are the people who will own this project for 1 year and 6 months. Nasasira Angus, it's a project. Nasasira Angus, I'm just there for the 420 or 13 minutes, and I leave. Then you're carrying the whole project. So literally, you realize that God blessed us in a way that for us we shall always sweat for the bread. Then you have that pain. It's even in the Bible. Those are not my words. God will really saw that, yeah, a man will always wait for the bread. That's why I say let the boys go back to school. But if there is a chance for a girl coming back to school, let her also join. Remember when we say now that the boy has impregnated a girl, stop studying. We are literally spoiling Uganda. Two citizens are going to be off education, and what does that imply?
Okay, fair
To
enough.
the economy anyway.
Fair enough. So the boy should be left to continue with school.
Yeah, but boys do not take chance of that, and
Don't
you
take
know,
advantage and say,
yeah,
I'll
impregnate
them.
every girl you meet around.
Yeah.
The other thing I don't know to the boys,
Okay.
can we find respect for ourselves? Why would I impregnate girl A, B, C up to Z? Because literally I don't know what this girl A has, girl B has. All you need is God. If you're Muslim, Allah. If you're pagan, like maybe I can say, is you bounce around.
Okay, fair enough.
Have one.
Comrade. Just 1 second. She came first. Yes, Comrade President.
I wanted to say that that opinion was a bit irrational because two wrongs cannot make something right. There is no way you can say since this gentleman has impregnated this girl, let him not go to school. I mean, what then is next for him? I don't think we should keep doing so many wrong things. You see, it's
An
like
eye for an eye.
yeah, that kind of thing that you see when you kill someone, then they should kill you. I saw someone bring up that policy, but then I want to believe that for most of these things, we always find ourselves addressing the, how can I call it, the victims rather than the perpetrators. That for so long these campaigns have focused on the girls.
The victims.
But then how about if we change the story and said now we're reaching out to these men and showing them actually that these are the negative impacts of teenage pregnancies. I think it would do a better role than stopping them from going to school.
Yeah, I think you've somehow preempted my mind and question, because my question to Comrade Hillary was that it takes two to tango, okay? That this girl didn't get pregnant like Mother Mary did. Mother Mary was just there sleeping, then out of the blue she was out of the blue she was pregnant for Jesus.
Yeah,
This girl actually had an entanglement with person X or with male person X. So, you know, the policy that they should be left behind as UNSA.
Well,
how do you get such comments? Well, it isn't a policy, but a comment that came out from, you know.
Well, first to clear something, the 2020 guidelines, the revised guidelines from, I think that argument came in some time back, but the 2020 guidelines were revised, and there is that provision of what happens to the boy.
The boy.
Yeah, and to highlight on that, they say that the boy is given a mandatory leave as well as the teenage mother or the teenage girl is given a mandatory leave at 3 months. So at that time, even the boy is given a mandatory leave. That is if the perpetrator is a student.
A student.
Yeah. So when
and if he's not?
And if he's not, then the police takes action. For example, if it is an adult, then the police has to take action. Yeah. Sure. How coming back, I agree with what Her Excellency said. With, you know, yeah, we are looking at this boy as a perpetrator, but at the same time, he's also a victim of, you know, the changes that are happening in his body. Yes, and we are looking at these two agreeing actually on having the sexual intercourse.
But Hillary, aren't you being hypocritical?
No, I'm not.
Because if you're saying that we must understand and vindicate this boy because he is having apparently, you know, natural changes in his life, but then you don't take into account the natural situation that Angus was trying to bring up earlier on, that I am a man, and if you undress before me, I get that natural urge as well.
So why should this young boy
be indicted?
Yeah.
Because his body is changing naturally.
These are children we are talking about. I believe there is a margin between a child and an adult, and that's why we call them children and we call the other one an adult. With an adult, we believe that you are at a level of, you know, coming to an understanding with your own self, and, you know, this is right and wrong. With a 15-year-old, they are maybe trying to, you know, reason out with the changes that are happening in their body.
How about the 19-year-old boy?
19, you're an adult.
No one has to be arrested.
Yes, you're an adult.
The
Probably
response is
teen you
there's a
have.
difference between boys versus men.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Right. So if we have two teenagers having a relationship and then one of them falls pregnant, the response is very different from when an
it's
adult
and-
takes advantage
yeah,
of
the
a teenager,
situation.
right? Because with the girl and the boy, the teenagers, then, right, we have to find ways to actually support
Handle
them.
the two children.
Right. Whereas with
Yeah.
an adult, because we do have this situation where we have adults take advantage of, right, young girls, and then it becomes, right, a family issue because the family does not want to punish the father of their, right, of their child, the father of their grandchild. And therefore these men tend to go, right, scot-free. There's literally no accountability at all, when in actual sense, right, they have violated someone. When it comes to those types of relationships, that's where we actually have to go to the law and say, no, right, this person has to be held to the book, right? We have to take them, right, as an abolitionist, I don't really want to say this, but they have to go to jail, they have to go to prison. But at the same time, two teenagers, right, having a consensual relationship, that is way different.
But there are juveniles. Anyway, that is.
And just back to what you actually forwarded to me.
Relationship.
Back to what the question that you forwarded to me. I feel like, yes, I would agree with the ministry's guidelines that once this girl is actually out, that also the boy would maybe serve as a lesson to the rest of the boys. However, where it is a little bit not practical is that, of course, the boy is going to get another school. They're not going to follow it up and find out, which is okay, but it is going to still serve as a lesson to the rest of the boys in the school.
Yeah.
So it is okay to give them a mandatory leave until the other girl is back to school, and then also the boy can come back to school. They're not entirely telling them, get out of school. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Hillary, I want to hold you and your entire institution accountable to these particular guidelines. Because I also read that, and the particular statement that caught my attention was that schools must establish health committees, which must have a counselor, but also schools are required to constantly check on these pregnant girls. How sustainable is this? How realistic is this? That a school, beyond offering you the education, you should go in to check on, check on these pregnant girls, and then establish these committees.
It's a little
As
bit
UNSA, are you following up that these health committees are established, and are they actually doing what they're supposed to do, or it's just on paper and nothing more?
Before Hillary answers that, can I say something quick? I think we've all been looking at teenage pregnancy, right, with the lens of punishment in focus, and that's why we're also bringing in the boy, right? Like, should he be punished? And for those reasons, we're seeing it as a personal failure, right? You as the individual have failed completely, and therefore, right, you should be punished for these and these reasons. When in actual sense, it isn't a personal failure, right? There's so many things, as we've said from the beginning, so many variables that come into play, right, in order for teenage pregnancy to happen. And so this lens of punishment doesn't really help our cause at all.
All right, fair enough. Hillary?
So back to whether this is realistic or unrealistic. It can be both, However, of course, now looking at privates, we have the private settings, we have the government settings and all that. So probably the ministry can follow. It's now back to the ministry that the ministry should actually follow up. Are these schools doing what we have told them to do? And I feel like the ministry has more it has more
ministry, yes, but how about UNSA?
Okay, now as UNSA, as a students' organization, of course, I believe that our role is to advocate. Of course, I stand here as, a women's affairs, a secretary of women's affairs, UNSA, and I advocate and call out to all the schools to actually follow the ministry's guidelines and do what the ministry says. Because whereas we are offering an education and you are looking for money to sustain your families, how are you going to benefit the progress of the nation as an entire nation? So it comes back to the schools that, yes, whereas we are providing an education, let us follow up on what is happening to our students. Let us not only be money-minded, but let us focus on, yes, the ministry has put up guidelines to help your direct beneficiaries. So I advocate and I say that, come out and follow up on what is happening to your students. I think it's unrealistic that you'd find you'd have a school having over 40 students. You may find like 10 being victims of that situation. Yes?
All right.
Can't those 10 be followed up? It's not something huge. The school health committees can actually be formed and follow up on these students. It's not something that is hard. So yeah, I call upon the schools to follow the ministry's guidelines, come up with the school health committees, follow up this child until the child comes back to school. It will actually help the child to know that, yes, there are people taking care of me. There are people who actually want to know that I can come back to school and I can actually achieve even after being pregnant.
Fair enough. It's important for them to know that the world doesn't forget them about them, right? Okay, President.
Okay, my issue is still writing things and then they stop in being just guidelines. That we're looking at these girls that are pregnant. Maybe most of them, if I'm being unbiased, for example, it's because of poverty. So meaning even the institutions in which they are already like not very expensive. So that brings us to UPE and then the government institutions. So by the time these teachers in these schools do not actually teach during that term, so do we really expect them to go and follow up on these teenage mothers? By the time these teachers are not being followed up to see if they're teaching. Who is going to follow them up to see that they're following up on teenage mothers?
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle.
It's just a cycle.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, well, I find it hard to interrupt Comrade President here because, you know, I'm a student at her university. So she is my boss. So I have to give her time to really, you know, make her point. But, well, fair enough. Now, conclusively, let me pick your thoughts on way forwards. Okay, I'll give you a minute each to give your way forwards. Then we can shift gears and get your comments regarding what is happening in the world, the Ukraine-Russia, disputes. So I'll begin with you, Hillary, as I move to Scovia, Angus, then Comrade President. Way forward regarding our teenage mothers.
Yeah, the way forward now comes back to each one of us. We are all accountable for these young girls. The societies in which they are staying in, the schools in which they were studying in or are studying in, the parents, the civil society organizations, the police, religious leaders, traditional leaders. So it comes back to each one of us. We are all accountable for their fate. So I call upon each one of us to raise hands together. Let us help these girls come back to their feet and realize that they have a future ahead of them and that being pregnant is not the end of it all. We have had victims of the situations, victims of the teenage pregnancy, like she talked about her mother, and I believe that they are successful. We call upon such victims that have been successful to come out and speak about their situation, maybe form groups and talk to them and know that it's not the end of the world. This is just a start to a better, future, and you can just redirect it. It may not have gone the way you anticipated, but we can help you build your future and make it brighter. So it all comes back to all of us. Let us stand up, put our hands together, and help these children go through it.
Yeah, fair enough. Scovia?
I would say I think this is the perfect moment to actually advocate for comprehensive sex education in our schools, because we realize that a lot of these children don't have access to sex education, and of course, right, contraceptives as well. But to the girls who have fallen pregnant, it's never too late to go back to school. You have options. There are vocational training programs. There are organizations like Kugonza that are trying to help out. If you can identify those organizations, reach out to them and see how they can provide help for you and help you, right, continue and progress your life in those regards.
Yeah, fair enough. Angus?
Thank you very much. I think, help me with your notebook.
Just the
well, feel fine. I think my way forward is going to be here. To the girls, life is just like this book. you might have gotten pregnant.
Oopsie.
And oh, sorry.
It's okay.
And literally, anyway, this is the way we are born. Like everything is clean. Your virginity is on. You know, everything is good. You don't have HIV, all that. So this is your life. This is a girl. So it comes back to you that you get to know that once it so happened, maybe in the lockdown, you got a challenge and you know, you have the pregnancy. I anticipate this is the pregnancy. So you have a lot to do on earth, and life is going to be good if you can concentrate and do a lot of things. Just as you see these papers, these empty ones, the clean ones, you have a lot of good things coming.
There are new chapters ahead.
New chapters are coming. So the same applies to the young boys. We are like this book. I know someone has impregnated some girl watching us. Feel well. It started like this. I don't remember the last day I did that, but life was like this. So if when you impregnated someone's girl, you left school, maybe at Shambogo or Makerere or in university, and life became a mess. No, look, it's possible that you can have a good life again. But that is if you settle your minds. Now set your goals. This is 2022. I really want to thank Kidega and my friends on the panel for coming here, so our life can be changed and you know we can have a good future. May God bless us all. I'm Angus Nasasira.
Fair enough, Comrade President.
Yes, my suggestion on the way forward is first and foremost, I appreciate all the panelists for their way forward, and I believe that this is it's a general effort. It's everyone's effort to come through and get to this. I don't know how many teenage mothers are watching us, but if you're that one person that is watching us, you may not be a teenage mother, but you could be knowing some in your community or in your society. Be that one person that is going to change that girl's story. Be the one person that is going to inspire her maybe. Show her that there is life after this teenage pregnancy. Show her that she can actually become who she has always wanted to be in future. For my last suggestion is that we've seen girls that trade off their bodies for just small things. So this is a request to the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Health. If you can afford to provide condoms, then please provide sanitary towels to the girls that are in Uganda. It would be like the best thing this government can give us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just like I had promised our viewers, that shall spare some 5-10 minutes towards the end of the talk show to pick our opinion regarding what is happening across the world, and this is the right moment. And beginning from Scovia. Scovia, you have at least, I appreciate that you've had a fair share of international education. So at least you understand the globe maybe slightly more than us, you know, what it means to be at immigration or what it means for the world to globalize and things like that. So the idea is that what happens across the world, one way or another, affects whatever happens down the side. Because just like George Walker Bush in his 2005 inauguration speech, he said that the peace and stability in America can only be sustained if there's peace and stability across the world. So that only shows you that the world is a global village, and whatever happens elsewhere must concern us because we are an international community. So just in 1 or 2 minutes, your opinion about what is happening and how maybe it affects us as a country, or we can just ignore it and live our lives and continue, you know.
All right, so I've seen a lot of memes and talks, right, making light of the situation, like, oh, World War III, or, you know, there are literally people who are like, oh yeah, Russia should try Kenya, and then the name of, right, they tag Uganda, there's a map, and, you know, Uganda is tagged as Kenya. But one thing that people don't realize is that there's a real human cost to war, and we've seen that with the, you know, kind of displacement that is currently happening in Ukraine, not the UK, Ukraine. And also, of course, right, people are dying, people are losing their lives as a result of this. And as Ugandans, as Africans, right, we are impacted in that we do have, right, students. I myself am an international student, so I really do, this is kind of personal for me, right, seeing African students being stopped at the Polish border with the border patrol, whatever they're called, officials, not allowing them to passed through, we kind of realized like the sort of racism and anti-blackness that our African students do face when they go outside of our countries looking for better opportunities, because in many cases, right, many of us may feel that our countries have failed us, so let's go look elsewhere. But at the same time, not only are our countries failing us in our countries, but when we go outside as well, because this is the time that our ministries of foreign affairs and groups that, you know, officials at the embassies should be working to repatriate those students back home. And we saw that with the Ugandan response to COVID-19 and the students that were stuck in China. All other countries, right, evacuated their students, and our students, our Ugandan students, had to go to Twitter to beg for our government to do something, right? And this is what the African students have gone to doing, right? Posting videos, having to, right, kind of display their trauma out there so that people can take pity on them, right? And that's not the position where, you know, we should be, right? Our countries, our governments should really, I don't know, right, make sure that we're never in such a position. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough, Comrade President, my boss at the university. What's your own opinion?
First and foremost, I'm a student of political education in my second year, so I think I know something about countries and respecting each other's sovereignty and what. So, first and foremost, I want to believe that Russia is just acting the big boy, but I condemn it. I don't think what Russia is doing to Ukraine is right. And for us as the rest of the world, it's absurd if maybe we sat back and kept quiet, because I don't think Russia can survive on its own. If the whole world came up and said, no, we condemn what Russia is doing and we're not going to buy anything from Russia, we're not going to do anything with Russia, I think it would add an effort, because today they've attacked Ukraine, tomorrow it's going to be Uganda, for example, and we don't even have half of what Ukraine has, so we shall all be crushed. So it's better if we came out earlier and showed what our stand is in regards to what Russia is doing.
Yeah, fair enough. Comrade Hillary?
Yeah, in a scope of women and children, you find that in situations of war, you find women and children are the really affected so much. So we shouldn't stand back and say, no, that war does not concern us. There are young girls out there, there are young women, there are children there. So yes, whatever is happening is not good. We say that they should come to an understanding and just in favor of, you know, these people, the victims that are not actually directly in the war but are victims of the war. And I want to believe that the rise of the cost of living is going to also be, I mean, there will be the rise in cost of living here in our country should be also attributed to those, the conflict. So I want to believe that the rise in fuel prices would be because of what is happening. So even if we are seated back here, it is going to directly affect us. Even if they're not going to come out and, you know, hit Uganda, our cost of living is going to be directly affected by what is happening. So yeah, we condemn what is going on, and we speak that of course, I don't know if this will reach wherever they will reach, but
you never know.
Yeah, never know. But yeah, Russia should come to an understanding and know that, you know, we can live without the war, and we can coexist.
Fair enough. Ndugu Angus, as the only gentleman on the show, you have the opportunity to give us the last words.
Well, I think I said I represent the young people of Western Uganda to the UN coalition. And you know, one of the SDGs is peace, stability. SDG 16, then 17 is partnerships. So I believe for this global world we are in, if we want to be well, we need peace. I would want to share this. The Africans that are in Ukraine now, they're not feeling the peace they should have. So I have a feeling that Russia should come to an understanding that, yeah, people are passing through a lot, and it's time they would withdraw. Let me use that statement. Let me use that statement that Russia should withdraw, because war is not good. I think it's the worst thing you can ever have. War is like hunger. So to me, my message is that Russia should stop this. When we speak about the The young children, as she was saying, the mothers, they're passing through a lot because this is the time of, I have to protect my life. And Russia is able sitting down watching all this movie. So I have a feeling that as Uganda, by the way, we shall get challenges. I know friends who have been getting some things from Russia. So meaning that their businesses are going to be on hold now. I have friends that have been in Ukraine. They are down. There is no more business. So I have a feeling that if Uganda cannot speak about this, or East Africa as a community, then there is that one bit, the economic bit, we shall be missing out. So it's high time that Africa can also engage in this and we see our way through. May God bless us.
Yes, well, comrades, thank you very much. You've been an amazing panel. I must confess, from Hillary to Scovia, Angus, comrade, president, you've all been amazing. And thank you very much for sparing the time to be with us. My own words regarding the initial conversation are the words of Samora Machel. Samora Machel was the Frelimo liberation leader of Mozambique, who said that the liberation and emancipation of women should not be seen as an act of humanitarian cause, but rather as a need for sustainable development, both within and across the globe. Well, regarding Russia and Ukraine, what I can say is that the world is a global village, and Russia needs to understand that. That today, yes, they have the deep pocket theory on their side, but tomorrow you never know how tables will turn. So let's all coexist and live together. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on this week's conversation of the Youth Roundtable. To the technical team, Comrade Rashid, thank you very much for ensuring that our viewers get this show right on time. We appreciate your efforts. And to all of you all, thank you and see you next week. Bye-bye.